Today we're going to be making a green and white money bag sign. So the first thing I do is grab my reflective green vinyl. We're going to use a 12 by 18 inch sign for this. I'm going to roll out the vinyl, then I'm going to take the sign, put it on top just to make sure I can cut it to the right size. I also like to trim off the side pieces when I do this. It just makes the piece a little bit smaller and somewhat easier. This vinyl is pretty thick, so having excess makes it kind of tricky. After that, I'm going to grab my cold roller and set it on my desk. I don't have a special place for it, so yeah, I have to move it up and down multiple times a day. Then I'm going to take my vinyl and set it on top of my sign, get it kind of lined up, and then I'm going to put it through the roller, lift up one end so that I can lay it down. Sometimes it takes a second to get the piece lined up, but ideally I just want to get a small, like 2 inches on one end so that I can run it through, flip it over like you see here, and then run it through the machine. You always have to make sure you hold it straight when you're running it through, or else it can like get all bubbly and whatnot. I also run it through twice just to make sure it sticks on well. After that's done, this is kind of where the boring part comes in. I usually have to do this for a lot of signs, but I trim all the edges. I do this part at once with all of them, but it takes forever. It's really important though that all the edges are clean, so I do this little scraping thing on all the corners and all the way around the sign really. It just smooths it out so it's not so rigid and makes sure there's nothing hanging off the sides. Then we're gonna unload our vinyl from the cutter. I use a Cricut cutter. This is the design that's gonna go on the sign. I roll it off the mat the way you see here just so I don't ruin it because it is pretty sticky. And then we start weeding the entire design. Like I said before, this is a money bag design. I made it for a shorter video talking about how you can make short form video and basically make a full-time income from that without even having a business. But as you can see here, I just have this little tool that I use to weed this entire thing. All I'm doing is pulling away the excess vinyl. When I design it, I kind of know which pieces to pull off. And depending on how you want the sign to look, you could pull different pieces off. Here we're gonna line our sign up with my roll of transfer tape, run it over it, and then cover the entire sign up. The big part of this is making sure that it goes on like smooth and flat. If not, when I put it through the roller, it has a chance of leaving bubbles, so we try to avoid that. Next is one of the trickiest parts about making this sign. I have to cut this decal out so that I can tell how close it's gonna be lined up when I put it on the sign, because usually I just eyeball it. The goal is just to not cut into the decal. Once that's done, I'm gonna pull that out of there. I can take my sign, and this is where I have to then line it up. This is actually the hardest part of the whole thing. These big signs are just hard to line up in general. Like I said, I eyeball it because it usually comes out pretty much perfect every time, and if it's not, I'll just redo it. But I take this tape and I just hold it down so I don't have any problems. And once that looks straight, I flip it over like this, you can see, and I start peeling off one corner where I'm then gonna use a squeegee. I have to cut this because if I fold it, there's a chance of leaving bubbles. You also have to be careful when cutting that you don't leave any like little extra pieces that'll get stuck under the vinyl when you go to roll it through the machine. I've done this a lot and you have to redo the entire sign. So we're gonna finish the cut and take our squeegee, and basically we're just gonna hold one side down by squeegeeing it on. This ensures that it's straight before it goes in the roller. And we put it in the roller, load one side in, flip it over like you can see, and then I'm gonna start peeling off the back. I always try to be careful with this part. Sometimes if I roll it without peeling off the back, you take a chance of ripping it. So I try to go slow with this. Different style signs are sometimes a little bit easier to do, but when it has detail like this and I'm filming, it just makes it a lot harder. I always try to make sure that I run it through twice as well, just to make sure that it sticks on the sign good. I don't want anything peeling off as I'm trying to take off the transfer tape. And this is what most people consider the most satisfying part of the entire process, is peeling off the transfer tape. You get to see the final product of what the sign looks like. This one came out good. I've never made a white one before. I made a black one earlier. Honestly, this one looks better, so that's pretty cool. And if you like it, both colors should be available on my website soon.